I want to know
Yeah.
more stories about, how BuzzFeed happened, and the things about BuzzFeed, and what was Akash doing before, because Akash, I don't know if you would like it or not, me saying it, but I got intro to you, I think 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. I
Okay.
probably saw you on Rega Jha's stories, or and one fine day you took over BuzzFeed India's live stream. I mean the
Yeah, yeah,
IG
yeah,
live.
yeah, yeah.
So that was my uh,
Got it.
intro to cash on delivery. And
Right.
no, I remembered that username. And yesterday, when you popped on my feed, I was like, okay, cash on delivery, ये कोई copy करके बैठे क्या? Is this a real cash on delivery that I knew via Andre Borges and
Yeah, yeah.
Rega Ja and this circle? So
I was
what was Akash before BuzzFeed? What was BuzzFeed like?
big transformation in my life. I think BuzzFeed and all happened, I think, in mid 20s. I think this. I started my career as a BCom graduate. I like a Tamil, like every Tamil household, my parents wanted me to become a chartered accountant,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept failing their dreams, which
Mm.
my brother has now fulfilled for them. He's successfully a chartered accountant, so the family is happy. But when I was working at that accounts job for 2 years, I had a laptop with me and I used to edit a lot of videos. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just pretty much doing compilations of sports movies or like sports clips, etc. So that's where my like kida for um, editing, video creation, all of that started happening. I
Mm.
Everything was happening very intuitively. That's the key over here. I didn't gravitate. I mean, I didn't chase anything out of like I need to do something. Things just came to me. Like the laptop was there. I started editing. I was like, wow, this is great. So right after those 2 years of accounting, I had to sort of quickly uh, like sell the concept of, I had to show proof of concept that I can actually do this full time. So I started working at this place called Sportskida, which
Mm-hmm.
tried to be the Buzzfeed of sports.
Of course.
So they were the UGC created, like they do everything that Buzzfeed does, but for sports.
Correct.
I joined there, did my thing. Parents were like, wow, this guy can do it. Let's send him to school. Went to school. School is SIMC. And I know Varun is not a big fan of sending people to college and it's a waste of money, etc. But I had a baller of a time, mostly because it was a technical course where you actually need to have a lot of equipment. You need to have that infrastructure in place. It's difficult to do that on your own. Like you can't do a filmmaking course without actually going out there and shooting, without knowing what lights do. For that, you need to have lights. So that was super useful. Went back to Sportskida. But then when I was at Sportskida, I don't think uh, so. Between Sportskida and SIMC, I was learning the craft of filmmaking. But I was really craving the energy that was booming in, like in Bombay at that time. BuzzFeed, AIB, EIC, all of these places were just starting out. And I was like, I need to be around these people if I want to grow in my career. Right? I know how to set up a video team. I know how to create good. I know how to create content, but I need to be around these people to be able to create good content. So it was pretty simple. I applied to a job and I got in. I guess I had what they needed, and I ended up getting here. And I really thank Rega for having that faith in me, because I think that was a big turning point in my life, where I went from being someone who is good at
Hmm.
creating content to someone who's good at creating good content. Like that's the change that BuzzFeed had. Their focus on storytelling was so much that it was not about whether you can shoot the most kick-ass video. It was more about, can you shoot a video in whatever capacity but tell a really good story in that point. So the entirety of my time at BuzzFeed was, I think, second school. And now at Netflix is like third school, where I've learned storytelling, but how do I scale it? How do I, uh, like Netflix is my entry into marketing.
Okay, super interesting. Cool. So Akash, मुझे थोड़ा story सुनना है. Before we talk about storytelling, I want to learn the story of when did you join BuzzFeed? Because from my research, I understand you were one of the early employees of BuzzFeed India. What was BuzzFeed like then? What were your goals and objectives? How did you grow BuzzFeed? What was the whole uh, duration of
Got it.
time
Got it.
about?
So I think I joined BuzzFeed at around 2016.
Aram
Um,
say, we've got all the time. Don't worry.
Got it. I joined BuzzFeed around 2016, and that was, I think, December of 2016. 2000, yeah, December of 2016 when I joined BuzzFeed, and that was the time when Facebook's investment into video was increasing. That was the time when geo was going to happen. It didn't yet happen. So BuzzFeed's game was pretty simple, dude. Like BuzzFeed was about capturing millennial culture, about creating editorial content that makes people click. It's a news site but for entertainment, to capture millennial imagination. But the only thing is that BuzzFeed India was always a trophy wife to BuzzFeed US. So there was
Mm-hmm.
never really a really the push to monetize or the push to grow BuzzFeed into something bigger in India was never really there. Um,
Okay.
what that did was that let us do whatever we want. And Vega is the master of sort of creating a space or an environment that
Mm-hmm.
lets you do whatever you want.
Hmm.
And I think that is the energy that I was craving. You know, like when you see those stories of
Hmm.
Rega, Cheyenne, it's all of them killing it in the office, doing whatever they want.
It's
That
real.
was literally every day in the office. You walk
Right.
into the office, there's a random thing happening on a particular day, and all of that was super normal to the point where, like, after 2 years, it becomes like it doesn't phase you. Something crazy is happening on one side, the other person is just sitting there going like, cool. So that energy was never like, it was supernatural. It was super organic. We, like, comedians would just walk in at any point of time, like be like, oh, let's do something fun. We'd be like, okay, chalo, let's do it. So I think Rega and the first batch of employees like Andre, Shayan, Rega, Nirali, all of these people, they did a good job at making sure that culture was maintained. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, it was pretty much just plug and play. Put in anyone who fits into that culture and watch them do their best.
Interesting. And what were you? What did you get in there as, and what did you, come out of as? Because there was a transition period, in during, in around those years from 2016 to 2018, when the
Yeah,
whole internet and all the media publishing houses moved from their blogs and listicles to videos. It
yeah,
became all about videos, and it became all about your YouTube channel and your Instagram channel.
yeah. So I think I joined when that boom was happening, that video boom was happening. So I joined as a video producer,
Mm-hmm.
so I basically took a sort of a status quo downgrade. At Sportskeeda, I was running the video team, so I was managing a video team. I was barely doing any production, but I was like, it's much better to be a small fish in a big pond than to be a big fish in that tiny ass. Like, you're not learning anything over there. You'll
I
learn
understand.
much more just doing small things over here. So I took that. I took that, and I came there, and I was basically producing videos, 3 videos a week or something like that. We had like a target or something. And yeah, the
And how would
concept.
you pick? How do you generate ideas? A lot of people, when you ask people to create content,
Yeah,
the most noobish problem, and the biggest starting friction is, how do I come up with a content strategy, which translates into, what do I make a video about? What do I talk about?
that's super awesome. Like, so basically, it's simple, dude. What does the audience really like? How do you find that out? It's quite simple. You go to the internet, there are a few formats that really work. Try and work around those. If you're a content creator who's just starting off, try and get some success in with some basic ass stuff. So a lot of what BuzzFeed does is super basic. There's nothing super complicated about it.
Hmm.
How we would go about testing those is through various formats. Um, you can go on Twitter and test one particular idea to see how people resonate with that. And then you can take that tweet, make it a small image on Instagram to see again if it works over there. Then you can create a bigger video out of it, and then you can create a much bigger like production out of it. Simple example is, if you are able to identify what the base emotion of a particular content is, people really miss their moms. And that's true for millennials who have just got a job, who've just moved to a new city or whatever. People really miss their moms. They miss the fact that they won't be getting food on the table. They miss the fact that their clothes are not going to be like in place. They'll have to adult basically. Take that simple one line concept. What all can you do around it? You can literally do 1 year of content. You can actually create a page called I Miss My Mom and fucking just fill that up in Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere, depending on what the platform like requires. So that's kind of how we would do it. So every
Got any
week,
examples?
I'm giving you the example of the mom
Do you
example.
got any examples that we can do a screen share of?
I think one example was if people know who I am, they'll know that there's this dosa video that we did. It was simple. We knew that
The X tries snacks of another X part of the world. Is that the kind of video?
that's one kind of video. This one was we go to 3 different dosa places and we try them out, and we see which one is the best. They're at different price points. Why that worked was we kept testing out various foods in simple formats. Like dosa is something that dosa, biryani, actually dosa is top tier of what people really love. Maybe biryani is in that list, butter chicken little bit, maybe chaat, but Maggi is also on that top list. Like anything we do with Maggi, put out content related to Maggi or dosa, people just eat that shit up. So we're like, why don't we scale this up? Why don't we create a small video about how to make a dosa? That did well. Then we were like, boom, let's invest much more into it. Let's go and create a video where we go to different places, like almost like a travelogue, and then try out the dosas in that place. Boom, again, worked like crazy. So
you double down on dosa.
you just double down on that base emotion. That's all.
Okay.
As soon
Super
as you're able
interesting.
to identify what that base emotion is,
You tap into the various associations that people have created out of that simple that minute concept that could be
exactly,
dosa.
exactly.
Okay.
Same with Maggie also. And that's the way we would do that is so 50% of our work would be experimental. 50% would be we know what's going to work. So let's double down on that. Every week we'd have like a wins and fails meeting, which I'd never heard of the concept of before. It's pretty
Spell
awesome.
that. Can you spell that for me?
It's a wins and fails,
Wins and fails. Okay.
wins and fails. Basic, like how did the week go basically.
Correct.
In those meetings, we didn't we're a data driven company, but it wouldn't ever sound like we are. The way Rega and Nirali and all would conduct that room, they would narrow down to what was that. Like we debate about content based on how it did, but we talk about the nuances of it rather than it did this many numbers, etc. And then we go down to the base emotion. If something didn't work, also we try and find and sort of exclude or eliminate what was the factor about it that made it not work, and then let's retry with another approach with the same base emotion. So yeah, that was a super simple way of getting shit.
Dude, listening to this, I don't think it sounds like a rocket science producing content. You're just testing out 100 things and then you're identifying what works. Okay, let's say 20 things work, understand what in those 20 things work, and double down on those 20 things and make 100 pieces out of those 20 things. If dosa works, then dosa in my whatever. Anyway, cool.
The problem is, what with creators is that the fear, like if something doesn't work, people start taking it personally, including me.
Yes.
So
It's
if you're able
it's
to,
like rejection.
yeah, if you're able to disconnect yourself from that fear a little bit, then you will start testing shit wildly, and you won't be afraid of putting out stuff almost every single day, even though people don't like it. But yeah, that's simple.
Okay, cool. I want to quickly dive into the meat of today's session.
Yeah.
Future of marketing. And before that, I learned that you want to kind of set the stage by talking about Pixar's guide to storytelling. What's that about? We all know Pixar, and we've all gone through their storytelling course. But what do you have in store for us? And does it have a story as well?
No, it's simple. My journey into marketing has been through a storyteller's route rather than a hardcore marketer, or like tactically how do you do these things, etc. Like what is a consumer, what is this convenience product, all of that stuff. Instead of that, I am now going. I've started from the storytelling side, but moving towards that side. But Why this is key is because I think to the future of marketing, it's important because there are some variables which are all of the things that you speak about. Like all of the, how are people going to consume stuff? Like what packaging do they want it in? What's the most effective way to reach them? All of that keeps changing forever. But what doesn't change is the fundamental of storytelling, the fundamental of why someone is willing to pay 1 lakh rupees for a pair of shoes that has a tag sticking out of it, just because it's called Off-White. Because Jordans are like, I don't know, the Jordans range from anywhere between 20K to like
Mm.
a lakh and a half. Why are
Mhm.
people willing to pay all of that? Is because of the story involved. So that's what I guess I think that people should start paying a little bit more attention to the storytelling aspect of marketing. Um, so I was trying to study what are the fundamentals of storytelling and how do you tell a solid story. And it's simple. It's a 3-act structure. Um, so there's this book or there's this article where this Pixar storyboard animator has put down like a 22 rules of what makes a good story, etc. But I don't think I can touch upon all of those. I'll touch upon the ones that are like super relevant or super easy to understand. Um, Storytelling is most effective when it's universal. That's like the first point. There are 7 basic plot points around which everything revolves. If I have to speak about exactly what those are, it's overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, rebirth. If you take any story in the world, it'll somehow fit into this narrative. And I don't want to go deep into those because it's not super relevant here. But if you're super interested, just go and search for like the universal 7 basic plot points. The second one, which is super important, is the structure of storytelling. I spoke about the beginning, middle, and end.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that, please? Tripti is asking, if you can repeat those, please.
Which one do you want me to repeat, Tripti?
The 7 basic again.
Tripti, just Google the 7 basic plots.
Can we just Google it right now? Let me share my screen.
Yeah, yeah.
And we will open it up for everyone. Can you say that again? 7 basic plots. So
Yeah.
every story is rooted in these 7 basic plots. There is no story beyond.
Every good story, obviously there'll be stories that are, you could argue that there may be stories that don't fit into this, but most likely you will see a story. Most stories will fit into that narrative.
Okay, so this is what I get to when I talk about 7 basic plots. Are we talking about the hero's journey by any chance?
No, the hero's journey is what I was going to talk about next, which is the structure of the story.
Okay.
It's not
so the 7 basic plots are overcoming the monster.
Yeah.
Second is rags to riches. Third is the quest. That is, a conquest of something. Voyage and return. Comedy, tragedy, rebirth.
Yep.
The 7 basic plots why we tell stories. Okay, super interesting. Cool. So every story is rooted in these plots. There are no other plots.
Yeah. Which is why, everything is a remix is super popular. Like you can't possibly tell an original story. You can only change the context of it and make it relevant to the times that you're in, the cultural context, the socio-political context, all of that. But if you look at the base dynamics of it, the mechanics of the story remain the same in those specific plot points. Structurally, stories. The Pixar guy actually put this very differently, so I'm not gonna claim credit for this. It's simple. Once upon a time, there was a dash. Every day, dash. One day, dash. Because of that dash, until finally dash. You can pull this up if you want. Just once upon a time there was a dash. If you see, like, it'll come up. So basically, the intent is once upon a time there was a dash. Let's take Gully Boy as an example for this. It'll become easier. Once upon a time there was a boy. Every day he used to roam around with his friends and he was in his Dharavi. Basically, once upon a time and every day is just setting context of the identity of this person. Identity is super important. And what the context of this person's life is. Just setting the background for the life. Because we don't have context, you don't have like a reference point of where this is.
If I'm getting this right, you're telling me that once upon a time, say you were setting, the story in a certain
World.
timeline, right? In
Yeah.
a world. Okay, once upon a time in 1948,
Yeah.
this used to exist.
Yes.
And then diving deeper into how 1948 used to be like, that every day the guy would do X, Y, and Z. He would.
It's simple. You just need to see what this person's regular life was. So every movie will start with setting up this character, taking you through one day of this person's journey. What is his normal life?
Hmm.
That is once upon a time, every day. Then after that comes the conflict, which is the middle. One
Okay.
day something happens. For Gully Boy, it's one day he sees Sher rapping, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is changing something. Like the beginning of the change is starting to happen." Because of that dash, until finally that dash is the how he moves towards the resolution of the story. Because of that, he realizes he wants to do it. Because of that, his parents are like, "You can't do this. Like that's not the life we have chosen for you." Because of that, he has to fight. Because of that, he has to leave his girlfriend, until finally he proves to all of them that he can actually do it. So that's the ending of it. So you take any super effective story, this structure is pretty much followed. And how this fits into even like a Buzzfeed video. We tried this, for example. Okay, we tried this for 30 days. The 30 days is the journey of transformation between, if you take yourself as a hero and you're the person who's trying something for 30 days, you start with setting up this person's world. What is my life like? So we tried this for 30 days video. Okay, let's take an example. We tried keto diet for 30 days. At the start of the video, you would establish what this person is like. What do they consume on a daily basis? So you have context on all of that. Then introduce keto. Then you do that for 30 days. And what are the problems that happen? And then finally, the transformation happens on the 30th day. So what I'm trying to get at is that this 3-act structure, or this beginning, middle, end, and
Correct.
this transformation of a story applies to literally anything. And
Correct.
that's what people really love.
I want to quickly just open, the narrative arc, because
Yeah.
3-act, in fact, leads to the narrative arc. Here, every story follows this arc. You can see my screen, right?
Yep. This is it.
This
There are
is the intro here. Okay, in 1948, there used to be X. Every day, in his life, he used to do this. But
yeah.
one fine day, a conflict occurs. Out of the normal thing happens. You want to run through this?
You know what? There's many different ways of putting this. The Pixar guy did it as once upon a
This is
time.
the 3-act structure: exposition,
Yeah.
climax, resolution.
Yeah, exactly. So there's many different ways to put this, but the end is this pretty much the same. What they're trying to say is, beginning may you set the context of the world. In the middle, something happens.
Create a conflict.
Create the conflict. Conflict is where the actual second act begins, and then after that, the third act is when it's starting to get resolved, which is the climax.
Correct.
There's so many different ways to put this. But at the end of the day, it's that beginning, middle, and end. If you want to simplify it to that, if you're going to go into the depths of it, then there are many ways to break the structure down. There's 5-act, there's 3-act, there's 7 acts.
But again, even if you break the 3-acts down, you're just slicing 3-acts into smaller pieces.
Exactly.
You're not adding more pieces. It's not like, okay, 3-acts ke baad 5 pieces or add ho gaye. Aisa nahi ho raha.
Exactly.
You're just, it's the same pie, but you're making multiple pieces of it.
Exactly. And then the other thing is, you can restructure some of this, which is which is why I think Quentin Tarantino was game changing, or even Nolan was game changing to a point where they would shuffle this structure around. They'd make this happen there, that happen here, and people be like, "What's going on?" But then it'll all make sense at the end. So that's basically what the structure of it looks like. And how this fits in an ad. If you think about marketing, sometimes you don't need to do the context setting. You can start straight with conflict, and immediately go into
Resolution.
resolution.
Climax.
So that's what a lot of ads do, and that's what, like, if you think about the future, short video is the future, right? That's what a lot of short video is also going to do. Like, start straight with the conflict and move to the resolution quickly. But I still haven't figured out what structure TikTok follows, or like how people tell on TikTok, because but so those are the first 2 points. The other few are super important. I think I'll quickly touch upon them. Purpose, the purpose and the intent of who is telling the story. Why are you the right person to tell the story is so underrated. The reason why I bought into Varun's DG ego and didn't think what a psycho was because when I started reading up on him, I was like, everything matches. Like it's super congruent. He's not
It's a
talking
consistent
nonsense.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, his purpose is earnest. He's super earnest about it. Why was Ranveer Singh the perfect person to play
For
that role?
Gully Boy.
Because he raps, because he believes in that culture, so people can buy into it a lot better. So that purpose is super important. I've added context also because I think context, which is why I think we'll come to it later, the psychology and anthropology aspect of it. But context, cultural context, socio-political context, what school context, all of that is super key in being able to tell a successful story. You can tell stories, people just won't watch them. If you have the context, everything aligned to what people are primed for, then boom, you're gonna kill it.
You need to explain this further. You need to simplify this for the audience. What you just said.
I'm trying to simplify. Okay.
इतना समझ गए कि intent and the purpose of the person who's telling the story is important.
Yeah.
And it should be traceable back. You shouldn't
Okay.
be telling multiple
Okay,
stories.
I'll tell you context wise how successful storytelling depends on context. Parasite is the, I think, cleanest example of why context is relevant. A socio-political context is the divide between the rich and the poor is going on increasing. Okay, that's one of the reasons. Again, it's a super simple, basic plot that he's used. Okay. Second is what is the socio-economic, like what is the cultural context around Korean culture being exported to the world right now? Korean culture is, I don't know if you like if the audience is super aware, but
We're talking about K-pop culture and the e-commerce that happens there. There is live stream e-commerce that happens predominantly in China. But yes, what else are you hinting at?
What I'm hinting at is basically Korea, the way they've positioned themselves in the world is they started getting out of a debt through culture. They started exporting culture. Dynamite or BTS, all of these things started blowing up because Korean culture is being accepted everywhere else. So that is also another reason. That's you see what I'm saying about why that context is also key in being able to tell a
Dude,
good
I
story.
remember a Korean band did an IPO recently.
Oh, is that EXO?
I'm not sure. But people
But
say, go ahead.
That's something to keep in mind, right? Like to know what the world is watching, what is the stage set for your story. Think of Gully Boy. The rap scene in Bombay was on a rise, and they hit it exactly at the time when it was at its peak. Now it's part of popular culture. From a subculture, they've graduated through Gully Boy to popular culture. So that context of it is super key in being able to tell a good story. And then context also, I think you'll have to have like packaging context. Like you can't tell like if the world is consuming TikToks now, you can't write an article about why your mom is so amazing. I mean, obviously it works, but you're going to be successful if you are in with what the world is doing right now. Finally, I think it's the emotion of the story. If you're able to evoke some form of catharsis in a person, whether that's laughter, tears, or some sort of pain, you're able to connect, boom, there's going to be like the story is going to be successful. Like people are going to buy into that idea. I think there are some more, but I'm like, this is itself a bit enough at this point. If you want to read more, just go read the 22 22
immutable laws of branding, or what are we talking about?
22 rules of storytelling by this Pixar guy, the guy who wrote it.
Okay.
He's a Pixar storyboarder who's kind of put these points down as to.
Dude, Pixar's recently rolled out a free storytelling course. You might just as well check that out. It's very consumable.
Yep. What they've nailed is obviously 50% of their job is to tell a beautiful story. I mean, tell the story beautifully, but 50% is able to nail that story. And every story is so basic. It appeals to a particular emotion, and that does the heavy lifting. The beautification, though, obviously that's such a big factor, but
Hmm.
it only adds more value to an already existing beautiful story.
अच्छा
So
आकाश एक बात बताओ how does all of this tie into the future of marketing because that's the bigger picture that we came here for.
so the reason why I think that ties in, like I think I
Hmm.
touched upon it right before getting into the storytelling, is because at the end of the day,
Hmm.
human beings, technology will change, okay, but
Hmm.
human beings are not going to be able to evolve at the pace at which technology evolves. So
Hmm.
the storytelling, the core emotions, all of those things are going to remain same. So the use storytelling as a tool, like as your
Hmm.
mechanical tool main, like that should be where everything generates. What you do on top of that, like how do you send those automated emails, how do you use the AI, all of those things are just tools that you use on top of this, is what I feel. I don't know if there's a argument to that, but I think that there's constants and there's variables. The variable is the technology which keeps evolving. The
It
constant
can
is
be
the human.
your production quality. It can be
All of those
what
things.
kind of audio you're using. It could be Dolby Digital. It could be
Yeah,
whatnot. But the core is the core,
the core is the
and
core.
with the core, without the core, everything's just an icing over the.
Exactly, which is, I've been thinking about doing a marketing course
Hmm.
because I'm not a marketer and I'm in the job of marketing. Sometimes I'm in a room with people who be talking about marketing. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I thought to myself, do I need to study marketing or do I need to study anthropology and psychology? Because that's way more impactful in being able to tell an effective story. Do I need, like, I can find an agency who will help me do all of the other things. But what is that core fundamental, like, how do I crack that? I need to be stronger in like psychology, anthropology. In fact, I have seen in one of my agencies, um, they have an anthropologist working in their creative team, which I
Hmm.
thought was super cool. Like, I've
Can we
never heard
define
of.
anthropology? Anthropology is the study of different cultures and how they behave, or what is it?
I think anthropology
There
is
was a
your.
time. There was a time. My best friend wanted to be an anthropologist right out of
Yeah.
school. Go ahead.
I think this guy, I think Yuval Noah Harari, the
Of
guy who,
course, of course.
he's an anthropologist, right?
I would call him a historian, but okay.
I think it's basically the study of human history, is what I think it is. The reason why I think it's relevant is if you're trying to predict the future, if you're trying to predict what people are going to be into, it's
Hmm.
important to know the history of what people have been on. So once you know the trends between like what they've been on for the last 2000 years, it's probably easier to track where it's going to go. With the rate at which technology is moving, I don't know if it's going to be that easy to predict, but I still think there is a case to be made that anthropologists should become a very important part of like marketing teams, perhaps even psychologists, because psychologists understand the human psyche, they understand what gets people going, why would someone click on this particular video, all of those things come from psychology. So
And
I'm
where have you seen this happening? Are you telling me that there are agencies that are actually looking out for anthropologists on their team, or
not as of yet.
it's just a coincidence that you saw happening?
Not I've seen it, it's very anecdotal at this point, where I've just seen one person like that. Perhaps it's started to happen a little bit more in the UK. There's this agency called Social Life, who I know. I think they do some of this, where they have like anthropology team, etc. But um, I think it'll become part of the future. If it should become part of the future, is my hope. Like if I have to start an agency, I would have an anthropologist and a psychologist instead of hiring a marketing team per se. So yeah, that's my hope. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Okay. Cool. Moving into the next thing, Akash. While we were talking about personal brands sometime back, I held the opinion that okay, everyone should have a personal brand. You were able to reason it out. You were able to reason it out, and you were able to link it to the future. You were like, everyone in the future is going to be a creator. Why is that going to happen? I mean, of course, I have my reasons, but how do you look at the thing?
You know, I reluctantly look into it. Sometimes I feel like it's really hard. It takes a lot of energy to build a personal brand. But if you do build a personal brand, you are ahead of the curve already. Like what you are doing, what Varun is doing, all of these people, the reason your company is probably getting a lot more eyeballs is probably because you're building your personal brands as well. People are able to know, oh, Varun is good at this. You've bought into the idea of who this person is. So I guess that's one of the reasons. But secondly, take TikTok for an example. Why it blew up was, one is because of the algorithm, but the more important thing is the app allowed everyone to become a creator, irrespective of who you are, what your production capabilities are, everything. It gave you the power of filmmaking in your hand, and all the effects, everything. So it took creativity, like it took anyone who even thought they could become a creator and like fast forwarded that process by like super fast. And so now that's not going to change. I think Gen Z's, all of them are going to be like, main to creator hai, main kuch bhi bana dega. So if that culture is already started, I don't think it will stop. People find a way to, I think Varun used this example of like expression economy. Everyone wants to express themselves in some way, and they'll find a way to do that. Take my influencer agency for an example. Okay, they are going to reach a point where the big influencers, people above millions, etc., you may be able to track them, you may be able to personally manage them, but there's going to be hundreds in the like 100 to 500K range, which is already happening. You're not going to be able to track them so simply. The influencer agency model also needs to evolve to a point where that becomes sort of automated or like scalable in some way. I don't know how I got here, but basically everyone is going to become a creator, and everyone's creative expression, the tool that they use to create, or like the place where they create, is going to become media inventory, is what I think.
Okay, interesting. Can you give me examples of that? How this is a natural progression as you explain it. But can you
Yeah.
give me an example of how that will play out in people's lives? How will how does that? This is a very social. This is a social commentary. How will that
Yeah.
affect
Well,
individuals, and how will individuals' priorities change based on that?
I don't really know because it's all happening as we speak. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure, man, how that'll happen. But um, the way I am seeing it happen to me is that it takes a lot of your life to be able to create. Like I'm on this journey where I want to create a podcast, etc. You can't have a full-time job and give proper attention to this creative journey. Like not everyone is going to have that skill or the energy to do it, because it does take a lot of energy. You need to do research, you need to produce it, you need to edit it. After that, you need to keep following this one. It's
But yeah, Akash, alternative क्या है? Because visibility is everything.
true. So I'm going to put in that effort, and most
Hmm.
people will put in that effort, but at some point they will leave their jobs and continue to do only this, and becomes, when they get to a point where they're self-sustainable, um, at that point they'll be like, I don't need to do a job anymore. But the problem is being self-sustainable. If you want to quit your job,
Mm-hmm.
you're and you have created a page or whatever, you are so heavily reliant on the power of the algorithm. एक overnight algorithm changes, you are now gone in the ranking. So how do you deal with that is something people need to figure out, which is why I think everything, because everyone's becoming a creator, individual creator, the decentralization of how people consume content is going to slowly start happening, where people have seen Facebook come and go. I mean, it's not gone, but people have seen Instagram come. It's going to go, I think. YouTube stays. TikTok has come and gone, but short video is going to stay. People have seen this cyclically happen, and now people are getting a little bit more aware that, you know what, you can't fully rely on these people's distribution. We need to find a way to hack this, and obviously smart people will figure that out. But um, you can't be fully reliant and leave your job just because you've got 100K followers on Instagram.
Okay, interesting. Cool. Moving on to the next thing. I think it's a sequel to what we just spoke about, and people are dropping questions about that. What is the next type of distribution? It's decentralized. What does decentralized mean, and
I'll give you an
does it just mean?
example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Decentralized, I'll give you an example and then we'll come to the decentralized. The concept of meme marketing is just starting. Memes as a media inventory didn't exist. It still actually doesn't exist. People don't recognize it as media inventory. What is media? Any media that you consume is media. Okay. How can you put your ad onto that media is something marketers need to figure out, but they haven't figured out that a billboard and a meme that I see on my phone can do the same job. And there are some meme marketing agencies that have started, obviously by Gen Z kids, because they figured it out. The way they do it is so simple. They have uh, I don't know if this is a decentralized model, but the way they're able to scale it is they will sell or they will put in a brief, a simple brief. This is the brand, and this is what the emotion is that they want to convey. This is the date. There's about 2,000 creators who are tied to that agency. How do I compare? What do I compare them to? There's no comparison at this point, but basically anyone can pick up that brief, and for a particular price, they can create a meme and put it out on their page. Depending on what their distribution is, they get paid accordingly. So not many people have figured this out, but it's happening. It's rampant right now. In the last year, a lot of brands, a lot of like a lot of people, a lot of even individuals use this technique to sort of subtly, without advertising, start seeping into the brains of people some messages.
Okay, cool. Garvit, says Garvit kind of spotted that we're going too fast, and he's asking. There's a time constraint. The time constraint is universal. There's the IPL inaugural ceremony. We've both got plans. So yes, okay. Can we quickly summarize the meme marketing?
The meme marketing, basically, it's simple, dude. Memes are media. Billboard is media. People put ads on billboards. People not putting ad on meme. Why? My question. That's pretty much the simple explanation of this. Like, people spend more times on their phone rather than, even when you're in an Uber, you're not looking at this one, dude. You're looking at your phone. So I don't know. There's no way to tell if a billboard has done anything to your campaign. But when it's a meme, people are like asking, like, what has it done for your campaign? So
Indeed. And Akash, even though you don't want to talk about Netflix, that's
yeah,
like a disclaimer. Akash cannot talk about Netflix, but
yeah,
Netflix and Prime Video, they've cracked meme marketing. And meme marketing, and this popularized by influencer marketing. Meme marketing
yeah,
can be the post, and it's amplified by influencers.
yeah.
The content platforms are already doing that. The brands need to catch on.
Exactly. Um, I think a few brands will catch on, but it's harder for brands to catch on because when you're creating content, Netflix creates content, Amazon creates content, that is culture. It's easier to make
Break it
culture
down.
part of the, like zeitgeist. It's harder for me to sell a toothbrush in a meme, dude. It might be easier to sell cred. It might be easier to sell a mutual fund. You can figure it out. There's money, all of those, like thematically, you can figure out how to do that. But there's just some products which absolutely, I don't think you look stupid if you start meme marketing those
Look,
products.
there are boring industries as well, where you cannot do much, and this mostly happens to be B2B, but there are people who are making B2B interesting as well. Anyway, cool. Akash, can we throw the floor open to Q&As?
Sure thing. I don't know how this is gonna go, but let's see.
Okay. IPL देखना है, that's the first question. Okay. Is creative cinematography going to be used in ads in the future?
I think so. I think, see, visuals create emotion. I think visuals are super strong. Like if you have a strong visual, there's no what to say, alternative to a really strong visual. So I don't think that's going to change. The way they capture it might change. People still need to see. Eyes to hai na. So I don't think cinematography is going anywhere. But
No, he's
The
asking, is creative cinematography going to be used in ads in the future? As in, is it going to be the new norm? And will that really affect the core, or the core is still storytelling? By the way, guys, if you want to ask questions, use the Q&A tab. Don't comment on chat.
I think so. I don't think cinematography is going anywhere. Like whether that's building those virtual production sets, that also requires a certain level of understanding light, this, that, and all. So I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But how you get that visual might change. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Okay, cool. So it's staying. And it's going to be used in the future. I think that would be the answer, and it's going to be used in the future in bigger volume, because that's a differentiator. Not every brand is able to use this in the present. Second question: if everybody is going to be a creator, then who's going to be the consumer? The non-creators?
Good question, dude. That's why I have not created till now, because I've been like, dude, if everyone's a creator, what's going to happen? I don't know. I just think that there's too many people in the world that we think that everyone's going to become a creator. And I falsely probably said that everyone's going to become a creator. But I think a very large number of people, or a very large percentage of people, are going to become creators. But the rest of the population still will be consuming, is what I think. So my bad. I shouldn't have said everyone. I should have said a larger volume of people will become creators.
Everyone's going to feel the need to be a creator, though.
Yeah, yeah.
The urge is going to be there. It's still there. Okay.
Yeah.
Which industry do you think isn't suited to meme marketing?
I think convenience products, like very basic fundamental convenience products, toothpaste, salt, all of these things. I'm not sure they need to do meme marketing in general. And it'll also look kind of odd if you're creating. I mean, you can make a really cool campaign out of it. We can figure that out, but it won't serve the purpose of like there's no need to do it.
Okay, can you give me an example of these
Because
brands?
I'll tell you why. A salt company does not need to become part of culture. It is already part of people's lives. They don't have an inherent need to, like, are karna hi hai. If you don't put salt in your food, you will not eat the food. You'll throw it. So like these basic as fundamental things, I don't think need to do any sort of meme marketing.
But dude, I think Amul did a good job of it.
Amul did. Yeah, I mean, it does help differentiate the product. But if you think about it, is Amul just butter? Because I like when you said Amul, and when I imagined the meme and all the
The
iconography
girl,
of all of
yeah.
that, yeah, I think I immediately thought of butter, but they do milk and everything else as well, right? So probably you're right. I just think it's not necessary.
Okay. People create different content, right? Let's say there are two, one creates sports content and other creates some other niche. They are each
Yeah.
other's consumer. Okay, this is not a question.
Okay.
Are they each other's consumer? Okay, that's how, I mean, that's another way this can work. If I'm
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
X content and you're creating Y, we can always consume each other's content.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. You mentioned the term media inventory while explaining meme marketing. Can you throw some light on that? What does media inventory
And
mean?
this is one word I've learned after joining Netflix and like after
Okay.
getting into marketing. Inventory is what? Like inventory is like in a shoe shop, inventory is the shoes.
The
Uh,
inventory is inventory when you're playing a game.
exactly. I guess like your ammo becomes part of your inventory, all of that. Like just your stock. What is the stock basically? And you buy inventory. You buy media inventory where you can place your ads. So all of the billboards and all of those things that you see outside, all of the ads that you see on TV, without the ads, they're just plain this ones. That is called inventory. Is how I have understood it.
Okay,
Anything
your
that's associated.
toolkit basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this, I don't know if you're going to answer this or not, but I'm going to put this to you anyway. How does
Yeah.
a budding filmmaker or a storyteller creator get the attention of brand like Netflix and plot and such platforms and pitch their stories?
It's actually quite simple. We have a very so far mostly it's been through production houses. we don't straight up take a particular story and go like, let's make this from a random filmmaker. And by random, I mean someone who's not super popular or who has established themselves as a writer or a filmmaker, etc. Like if Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra calls, he'll be like, yeah, tell us your story. But mostly it is routed through production houses. So if you have an entry into production houses who are associated with us, it'll be much better. Having said that, we have a team that just reads scripts. So there is an email ID which I can send out to you guys, and you can send in your scripts onto that, and someone or the other will read it and decide whether that's a story worth telling. And if it is, then they'll get in touch with you.
Okay. For someone who wants to start his personal brand, 3 steps or 3 tips for the creator.
Oh God, simple.
Listicle.
you, it's about the purpose, dude. Why? What brand do you want to start? If you are someone who believes, um, I don't know, it's about who you are as a person. That's what branding is. So it needs to be super true to who you are. If you're someone who really believes in, like, take me for an example. Okay, I am super curious about the future. I am trying to build a brand around myself as a person who's curious about the future. My first step is finding someone who is in that same zone, brainstorming with them, figuring out what is the need. Are there more people like us? What would they like to consume? And then I figured out there are many people like that. Let's start a podcast where two of us discuss what the future is, bring in people. So that's one thing, I guess. Most important is figuring out who you are as a person, and then everything else will become a little bit more easier. The other things are, to build your personal brand, I guess you need to figure out how you want to do that, whether it's through images or videos or whatever. How do you want to communicate those messages to the world? Those are all very tactical stuff, but also important because that communicates who you are as a person. If you're someone who really writes nice articles and presents it so beautifully like Rega does, that brand is sort of created in your head as who Rega is. If you're someone like Shayan, he creates videos, but Varun also creates videos. There's such a big difference, right, in the way they both create. One is super quirky. All of those, like who you are as a person and what you want to convey, all of that needs to breathe into every single aspect of your thing, whether that's the caption, whether that's the actual content. Um, yep.
Being a technologist, I can say we are aware of what we are feeding in the brains of the people with AI and all. How do you see that will affect content creating community in coming years?
मेरे को मालूम नहीं. I'm just straight up saying. I have no idea. I had put down stuff that I wanted to. Those are the things I'm curious about, but I have absolutely no idea. I don't know where AI is going. It freaks me out, which is why whenever I listen to like Varun or you guys or like any of these podcasts where you're speculating about the future and talking about how AI is going to destroy the bottom layer, I'm like, my brain explodes and I'm like, I don't want to see this world. People are going to be dying. Like, my point is, it overwhelms me because the impact that it'll have, the trickle effect that it'll have on so many different things is super overwhelming. Like, I get super scared when I think of AI.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, I didn't answer the question. I just gave emotions.
That's okay. Okay. One of the last few questions: is digital real estate still the most valuable? Thoughts on traditional media? Is virality of a campaign measurable and crackable?
No,
Trackable, I think he
no.
means.
I don't think virality of a campaign is crackable. You can't measure it, but you can feel it. That's the only difference. Like, you know when something has gone viral. There's times when you see something has 10 million views, and there's two things that has 10 million views, but one of them would have created some sort of a conversation. You would have heard about it a little bit more. These things, it's not measurable, and I don't know how to like articulate it, but it's definitely there. You can feel it in the air. Sounds super floozy, but it's true. Hopefully some anthropologists or psychologists will be able to answer why that happens, which is why I think I should study psychology. Sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Just a minute. What he
Digital inventory. Oh
is
yeah.
digital real estate, basically, the spots on the
Yeah.
feed. Is
I
it?
don't think that's. I think that's going to rise and rise and rise as we start using more and more. Like, you
It's
will
it
know more about this.
it might
So
not be as valuable as it will be in future. This is, the prices here are only going to
okay,
rise. The ad costs are only going to rise.
is
Okay.
that what you're saying?
that's my response to the question. He was asking if it's still the most valuable.
Okay, got it. Depends, no? Like in like traditional media, all your if you're considering like out of home, I think that is going to go down, no? Because at least with COVID, it's gone down like mad. But like TV and all, I think it'll continue to like generate revenue, some form of it.
Acha chalo. Last question.
Okay,
Social Dilemma. Have you watched it? What are your thoughts on it?
I watched it as someone who has, so when I first watched Social Dilemma, I was like, did you not know this? Like, what are you doing? How do you not know this? Like, it baffled me that people didn't know all of this. Like, when people's minds were being blown, I was like, bro, क्या acting कर रहा है? तुमको तो पता है ये हो रहा है. Like, why? I guess they packaged it really beautifully, and they told the story very impactfully, which is why people are like, oh fuck. But then what's so ironic is that people are immediately going on Twitter and Instagram and being like, watch it right now. I'm like, you're doing exactly what like the movie
Being
showed
shown,
that you will
yeah.
do. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. There is no way around it yet because we are stuck. We've bought into a network. We can't just break out of this network and run away. I don't know how that's going to happen, how that decentralization is going to happen, where Google will be like, okay, we don't own all the power. Okay, YouTube, we don't own all the power. Facebook doesn't own it. But how that transition is going to be tricky. Um,
And it's still a concept. I don't see
yeah.
even traces of reality that we're going there. Even if there are people building similar products, there is no adoption. Okay, cool. Chalo fair. Akash,
Thank
this
you so much,
was a
man.
good one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, audience. This lasted an hour, and now we're both gonna switch our screens and get glued to something else. This was a nice session. Thank you so much for gracing
Last.
us. Thank you, audience. Thank you, haters. Thank you,
Cheers. Cheers.
lovers. Thank
This
you,
is beautiful.
Akash. Take care.